So let me get my recording started. Okay, I think we are now recording. So welcome to your first foray into Drexel's EDD program. I read much of the material that you sent me, and what I'm going to be doing is after I get everyone's report, I'm going to break you into probably 4 reflective conversation teams, and then you'll meet weekly with your team members to talk about, the material that you're going through, to interact with each other, raise questions that you think I need to know, et cetera, et cetera. So look for that listing probably towards the end of the week, the beginning of the weekend. And what I wanted to do, everyone can see this page, right? You're able to see the Drexel page. That's all. You can go like this and I can see you, so that's good. So I just wanted to show this real quick to you. So starting on Sunday, every Sunday you're going to receive a voice announcement from me, and I'll explain what the week's work is, what you're doing, what the assignments are related to that, what your readings are, talking about the readings. Then what I'll do then is that'll be posted on Sunday, and I'll email each one of you. Will get a recording of that, and I do it in Audacity, just so you know. So it'll come across as a MP2 or an MP3. So that's one of the ways I'll be communicating with you. And obviously, you can hear my dog maybe in the background trying to communicate with you also. And if you did see 60 Minutes last night, it was kind of interesting about dog intelligence. So if you get a chance, you might want to watch that. So anyway, the other thing I wanted to show you on this, besides, so when you go in each week, obviously you have looked at this, and what it does is it gives you material, what the reading assignment will be for that week, and you do have an assignment for this week. And basically what I want you to do in this day in the life is I want you to write out your assumptions that you carry right now about leadership, and all I want you to do is put those into a single sentence for each one. So I want to have an idea. Then what I want you to do is to write a short day in the life of what it would look like you carrying out those assumptions and how they would go. And so this is a first-person paper. It's non-academic. All it is I want to get a sense of what you're thinking, and also to get you to start doing a little deeper dive into what ideas you carry around in your head about leadership, and to kind of surface those so that we can begin to look at those. So that will be your first assignment. It's due next Sunday evening, in no more than 4 pages. And I believe, let me just check one thing. I think I said this, because you do have an, see, do I have it on this one? I just want to double check. Yeah, you can do it in some format of social media if you want to express it that way, because I want to see how you express your ideas, either in written form or if you like creative use of either YouTube video, expressing it through that, or a Prezi or something like that. You can do that also. All right? So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If you have any questions about that, anytime, let me know. So every week you'll go in and you'll see this. The other thing that I want you to be aware of, on the bullets, I have this section called resources, and in there I have many articles about individuals who will be covering articles related to leadership, because one of your assignments over time will be to do a short academic paper about what you're finding in the literature about the concept of leadership. So I want you to be aware that all this stuff is here. So for example, if you want to take a look at Peter Senge, I believe, like I have a couple articles in here that you can download and look at. They're in PDF format, so you're able to have a whole series of material that's available to you. And also, what I did, you see the matrix examples up here? You will do a two-person matrix project, and what I have available for you is some examples of how people in the past have put this project together. So I have material like that available to you. Also, I do have a couple of articles, and I'll keep populating this as it relates to different articles, research articles related to leadership. So I just want you to be aware of this format and how to use this. I don't know how familiar you are with using Blackboard Learn, but hopefully this will give you a sense. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Go ahead. Who had their hand up? They had a question. Okay, go ahead. What's your question about the 4-page assignment? Do you have your mic muted? Trying to see who's, okay, well.
His mic's not working.
Oh, it's not working. Okay, if you have that question, can you type it in then, please? Because your mic is muted. I see it's off. If not, type in your question. Hopefully you're hearing me. Obviously you are. So I'll look for your question. Okay, let me keep moving forward. Once you get that, okay, do you have an example of what you're looking for? Now, all I'm asking you to do is all right, and you'll see this in a couple minutes in the slides what I'm talking about. So, you know, you believe in leadership. So, you know, I believe that leaders should be empathetic. So that is an assumption I carry out. So in that assignment, I might tease out maybe 4 or 5 assumptions that I have about leadership. One of those might be, I strongly believe that leaders need to be empathetic people. I also strongly believe that they must be listeners to other people. So what you would do is, just write those out in a single sentence, your assumptions. Then what I want you to do is kind of tell me a story of what you would look like in a day in the life as a leader. So if you're working in a school, you're working in a business, you could actually start out saying, okay, I get to work at this time. These are the things I try to do. These are the types of activities that I get involved in. So that's what I want you to be able to do. And as I said, you can write it out, or you can do a YouTube video, talking about it, explaining it. But what I'm really getting at is to get you to look at what assumptions you have in your head and how do these assumptions affect your behavior in relationship to action. Okay, does that help? And anybody else? Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to go to another share. So hang on one second. I want to share a screen, and now I'll go to. So here's what I want to do now is to basically go through, just a quick overview of what this course is about. So you have a sense what it is. So here's a little bit about who I am. That's me, I guess maybe about 3 years old. obviously, if you know what this bridge is, Trenton makes the world take. And so therefore, here I am. So I am your facilitator. So that's been a long journey. And you can see that I lost my hair along the way. So anyway, this is what I've done over 47 years in the educational field. I taught in the Pittsburgh Catholic school system. I was a director of counseling and curriculum for the Reynolds School District, which is in Northwest Pennsylvania, Greenville, Reynolds area. I was the assistant superintendent at Elanco, which is Eastern Lancaster County School District in New Holland, Pennsylvania, which is where I still live. So I am in New Holland, which is in Lancaster County. Then I became the assistant superintendent at Norristown School District. I was also the acting superintendent for a period of time. Then I left Norristown and I went to the IU, where Montgomery County IU, where I was the curriculum director. And during that period of time, I went on loan to Tom Ridge's Office of Information Technology, and I was a project manager for a project called Link to Learn in Pennsylvania back in the late 90s, where the legislators were giving money to schools to begin to understand how to use the internet. And so my job, I was the, quote, shared vision project manager, and I went around the state and brought communities, businesses, and schools together to begin to visualize possibilities of how we can use technology in learning. So that was my job for 2 years, working out of Ridge's office. Then I became the superintendent of the Morrisville School District, which is in Bucks County. I then was the superintendent at Northwest Lehigh School District. And then finally, for the last 8 years, I've been at Drexel. And myself and Dr. Ed Bureau, he and I are basically the co-designers of this EDD program. And it's a highly interactive program. It's designed to really get you to become a transitional leader within your organization. And the whole focus is on the future. So, I asked you to give me information about you, but I wanted to make sure you know what my background is and where I'm coming from. And I can tell you, particularly when you look at my superintendencies, I have always been very, very active in trying to redesign the schools that we have. So in Morrisville, I created a building. Well, I didn't create the building. My proudest moment was when an entire group of elementary teachers in one building went to the school board and asked to have the walls knocked down between their classrooms. And at that time, I had a good board, and they granted that because we were working on the idea of rethinking how we group kids, doing away with actually doing away with grade levels, and having teachers teaching teams. And we did that in the early 2000s. I do have video to prove it, because one of the things we did, since we had community television through Comcast, we went in and we videotaped this and we ran it on our community television so that people could see a different view of what learning could look like. And so I was pretty successful there till, as any of you who will become superintendents know, that when an evil board came on, they got rid of all of us, because that's the politics after 6.5 years. And then I went to Northwestern Lehigh, where I only lasted basically 2.5 years, because I learned something about what change leadership is about. The board wanted me to come in and be a change agent. And so I came in and I started doing my change agency stuff. And then all of a sudden they began to realize, no, we don't want that. That's something, whoa, that's weird. So what happened was, and I can share with you as we go through these different courses, I've had some very good success as a leader, and I've had a lot of failure as a leader. And I think as a leader, you need to understand that you're not always going to be successful. You're going to have ups and downs, and you need to understand how to deal with that. So basically, that's who I am. And so I want you to know that as we go through, because I am generally a little unconventional in the way and I look at the educational system, and I understand the realities of it also. But I'm going to try to stretch your thinking quite a bit as we go through this. And those of you who are in higher ed, we're doing the same thing, because we're looking at the ideas of how do you rethink the nature of what higher ed has to become going forward. And those of you who are working outside of education, the same thing with your organizations or your businesses, etc. So that's going to be a lot of things that we'll be talking about and exploring as we go through this process. Okay, any questions, comments so far based about who I am? Okay, so next slide then is basically, all right, here's the purpose of what this 800 courses is all about. And so it's going to be a journey into really the concepts of what it is to be a leader in a time when there's great global transitional change taking place. And the question we have to ask ourselves, basically is, are our schools, our learning organizations particularly, are they really structured to deal with the complexity of this global transition that's taking place? So we're going to explore that, and I'm going to have you to do kind of deep dives into thinking about that in relationship, particularly those of you who are teachers in the K-12 environment, as you think about the kids. Those of you in the university environment, the same thing, because when you look at what's going on even at the university level and the big debate on the change of it, particularly on return on investment, the amount of money that people are putting into a college education and what are they really getting out of it besides debt. So we're going to explore those particular ideas. The other thing we're going to be looking at in terms of the purpose is really to get you to do a deeper dive into your assumptions about what it really means to lead in this time. And so, my ability to at least give you some different points of view than the status quo is going to be important. And the reason we're doing that is so that you really begin to question what your belief structures are to see really how strong they are. So that becomes a second purpose. And then the final purpose, when you look at this course, really is to help you to develop the skill sets then to really understand who you are. And in another course in 625, well, actually it's going to be, I think, 425, we're making a change. When we get into this concept of Theory U next quarter, what it's going to be about is really, how do you find what is your source of leadership? Why do you want to become a leader? What does leadership mean to you? And is it hierarchical, or is it a dispersed concept that leadership really is involved in how you interact with people, no matter where you are within an organization? So that's the purpose of what 800 is about. And so these are the books that you're looking at. 2 from Peter Senge. And again, these are not textbooks. These are books that we put together so that you can use in several courses, not just one course. And they're more trade books than they are traditional academic books. Now, a lot of people will always ask me, why in the world are we reading something about sustainability in businesses, etc.? Well, one of the things is they say, particularly educators, we need to begin to understand what the realities on this planet are that are facing kids in general. And what this book will do is really help you to begin to understand systems thinking, but from a sustainability point of view. And it's one that, as you get into it and you begin to look at it, it helps you to understand the broader context of how economics and ecology interact with each other, and what does that mean to learning environments. particularly as we're so fixated on STEM or STEAM learning, this becomes a very important question. And so you're going to learn a lot about the tools of systems thinking and what the fifth discipline, Schools That Learn, specifically focuses on the understanding of how to use these within an educational environment. So again, these are tool books that you'll be able to use not just in this course, but in other courses and in your work in itself. So those are two of the books. The other three, Russell Akoff's Turning Learning Right Side Up. Very interesting book. Russell Akoff passed away a couple years ago. He was at the Wharton School. He was one of the leading thinkers on this planet related to organizational change and thinking. And so I had the pleasure of working with him for 4 months when I was a superintendent. We would go to the Penn Study Council, and they brought him in, and he worked with us superintendents. It was one of the most interesting experience that I had. So this book will help you really to begin to think about, what we need to do going forward in relationship to education. Michael Fullen, I'm sure a lot of you know who he is. This is a pretty short book. I'd like you to have this book read within the 4 weeks. Again, it really gets you into understanding what change leaders are all about. And then the book by Linsky and Heifetz is this adaptive leadership. And you're going to deal with this concept of knowing how to be on the dance floor and when to be on the balcony. You're going to understand about what adaptive leadership is about. You're going to understand how there are technical types of things you have to deal with as a leader, but then there are these broad, expansive, adaptive leadership concepts. So this book is sort of a field book also, and it comes off of their book, which we use in several of the iterations of this course, called Leadership on the Line, and why leadership is a very dangerous thing. So these are the 5 books that you'll be using, and when you go through your syllabus, I outlined, those chapters I'd like you to look at. But basically, what I'd like you to do is, by the end of this quarter, have a pretty good sense of what these books are. So read them, and you'll find these books, as other students have, are types of books that you'll keep using well beyond this course. And then what I have for you is a couple other, these are good resources. There's the Leadership on the Line. Very interesting one, a field book called The Dance of Change. Really dives into the issue of change theory, and activities to deal with that. And those of you who are not in a K-12 environment, particularly, or have any business background, the original fifth discipline field book deals with a lot of the ideas that are in the Schools That Learn, but it's more towards a business orientation. And then the last one I always have people look at is Robert Fritz's book, The Path of Least Resistance for Managers. And that really gets into something we're going to touch on over the next 10 weeks, called this concept of creative tension. Now, you don't have to read these books, but I'm just saying these are other books that you might find of some interest. Okay? So that's the books. I'm hoping that everyone's been able to get those, either bookstore or Amazon, however you're able, to get them. All right? Any questions about books? Okay, so that's your framework. That I put this together for you. So basically, each week is laid out there. What we're doing. If you notice, I'm trying to do a Zoom class every other week for you. Now, about the Zoom classes, they all will be recorded. They're not mandatory. So if you want to come to them, you're welcome to come to those. To ask questions, to interact, etc. But if you have conflict with any of those, remember, they always will be recorded. They'll be uploaded to YouTube, and then you can watch them. Then if you have questions about them, you can contact me, or you can talk to your colleagues within your reflective conversations. All right, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that I have Zoom classes there, and that I will make myself available to you, as I will be always available at any time to meet with you or talk with you, chat with you, or respond by email. And then all the readings are there, what you need to look at in terms of the readings, kind of like spread it out as much as I can. So that gives you a pretty good sense of the layout of the 10 weeks. All
Dr.
right?
Gould, a question?
Yes.
Where do the videos from the Zoom recordings live once they're recorded, if we need to find them in the archive?
No, I will send you the link to my YouTube page.
Okay.
Because they're going to live there.
Okay, great.
So when Zoom, one of the nice things about Zoom is, since I'm recording, once we're done with this class, it will create both an audio and a video file, and I'm able to upload the video to YouTube. So that's where you'll find them. Okay? All right, so moving along. So there's your assignments. So again, it says week 1. It's not week 1, it'll be 2 to 10. So I will put together those teams, and you have a responsibility each week to interact with each other. That's your job. I'm not involved in them. They're for you. Because one of the things I believe, and if you notice, I said to you in a couple of my emails, is that I'm going to be your learning facilitator. Because my job is to create a space where you're going to be both learner and teacher. And that's important. And you're going to see where that's coming from when you look at Russell Acuff's stuff. So that's the intent of the reflective conversation team. But if you want me to come in, maybe because you want to query me about some things or some clarifications, let me know, and then I can join them at any time. Okay, question, hands up. What is your question? Yeah, type it in if your microphone's not working. Okay, well, let me see. Yeah, well, we will talk about that, because because when you look at urban versus quote, a non-urban, the question of a leader and what we're going to deal with particularly over 20 weeks is how do you engage community? What leadership skills are necessary to bring people into this process? And that part of the thing is that from my point of view, an assumption that I have, and have had this over many, many years, is that schools by and large, whether they realize it or not, are disconnected from their communities. And that schools by and large have a tendency to tell the community what they need to do, as opposed to creating a generative conversation with trying to understand what the common needs are and what a shared vision or a shared sense of the future needs to become. Now, when you can create that type of trust between school and parent and community, then I think that's where you go to. And particularly the Senge books will speak to that concept. Okay, hope that helps. No, not yet. I said, what I told you was I will get your reflective teams out to you by the end of the week. That's why I asked for, I wanted to see who you are and what your job positions are, so I can group the teams appropriately. All right? So that should help.
Excuse me, Professor. This is Tanika. I'm on the phone and I'm having technical challenges. Can you say the question out loud that people are typing in, so I know what question you're responding to? Okay.
So that question that what I was talking about was a question of, do you have examples of what you're looking for? Oops, that's not the right one. Excuse me, I got to get back here. Oh, do any of the books speak to dealing with the lack of parental involvement that is so often exist in the inner city schools. And the Senge book particularly will look at that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I've already explained a day in the life. Each Sunday when I do a voice announcement, I will go into more detail in that voice announcement to an upcoming assignment that you will have due. Now, the other thing that's very important about this, I have due dates on these, but this is a part-time program, and you guys have a lot of responsibility either within your work or within family. So there are times when you might say, hey, wait a second, I need a little extra time. All you need to do is let me know. And most of the times, I extend whatever you need to do that. So that's important because you're on a 10-week journey. The more important thing about this is by the end of 10 weeks, you get everything done. So I'm not, okay, it's got to be in there. If it's not in, I'm cutting your grade and I'm going to do that. That's not what this is about. You're starting this journey to learn, and so you're going to find out a lot of things about yourself. I put these assignments and due dates in for the purpose of at least structuring for you so you don't get too far behind. But I also realize that you have other responsibilities in your lives and that this is only a small part of that. So I have a lot of flexibility, and that to me is very important, okay? So, and this is being recorded, and it will be on YouTube. So if I ever violate that law, you can come back and nail me for it, all right? So that's your assignments. So the reflective conversation, and I just want to cover this, is that basically, and this is in your syllabus, so this will start in week 2, and basically all I want you to do is reflect with your teammates, because one of the things I have you do a lot of group work, because group learning is extremely important, and it is a concept that is becoming more and more important when you look at what employers are saying. We want people that can work in teams, think on their feet, etc. So what I have a tendency to do quite a bit is have you do group work together so that you become a learning community. And that to me is very important. So one of the beginning processes of the reflective conversation team is to get you into this. And so the 10-week experiences I have there is really to understand, to really begin to understand what collaborative learning is all about. And in that the more you do that, the more you develop trust among each other and are able to talk to each other, the deeper you're going to understand leadership. So that is what a reflective conversation team is all about. And again, as I said to you, you can create the vehicle on how you want your team to be, because there's so much social media out there that you guys probably know much better than I have, and you might have a particular type of format that you like to use, whether it be in Google, or whatever, all right? So that's the purpose of this. And after you had some time to digest this, if you have further questions, just let me know. So what we're going to do is, and really quickly, I'm just going to go through this, and you should have all these slides. So there's 3 guiding principles for creating a sustainable future with any organization, and this comes out of the work of Peter Senge. So one is, there's really no visible path forward that doesn't take in account the needs of future generations. So we need to constantly think about that, because what happens, so from an ecological point of view, is do we utilize all our resources at the expense of the future? That's an ecological definition of sustainability. From an economic one, it's almost the same thing. Do we utilize all our resources in the heck with future generations? So from a political point of view, look at the major debate that's going on with Social Security. And Social Security was something that was developed in the 30s to give security to people. Franklin Roosevelt put that stuff together, etc. And now look at the debates that we have about that because of whether or not Social Security is a sustainable issue. Take a look at the issue of health care. In health care, the whole debate around, and I'll use the terminology, Obamacare versus free market systems versus the rest of the world. So that's examples of what I mean by what do we need to take into account about the future generations. And then we also have to begin to talk about is, because of this changing world, what do kids really need to learn today? So that's the first thing that we have to explore. The other thing is that institutions do matter because they're the organizing structure for us to deal with these issues. So, we always say, blow up the institution, get rid of the institution. Well, no, institutions culturally are designed so that you can come together around common purpose, common sense of the future, etc. But the other question I'm going to pose to you is the present structure of our institutions appropriate for the emerging needs that are taking place in this world? So are our schools designed appropriately anymore? Because remember, they were designed back at the turn of the century for an industrial world. And we all give homage to that. Oh, schools are, industrial-based, structures, and we have bells and all this stuff. You ever watch any of the Ken Robinson stuff? We got to get rid of that. But why don't we? Because the assumptions are so powerful, and we're all products of that it's hard for us to really begin to realize how you change those structures. And then really, all real change is grounded in new ways of thinking and perceiving. That's what it is. So one of the reasons I'm asking you to put on paper or present your assumptions, I want you to surface your assumptions about how you're thinking about leadership. And then we're going to test them against all this stuff that you're going to be exposed to. Okay? So that's the context. Whoops. So what that then means is, and the way we're going to deal with this is one of the things you're going to learn this quarter is this idea of the iceberg. and this comes out of systems thinking. And basically, what this is about is that you look at events. This is the stuff that happens to you every single day. If you think about today in your work environment, just ask yourself, just what happened? What's all the crap I had to put up with? What's like, oh my God, it's driving me crazy, da-da-da-da-da. So we go through that. But the problem that we have to become aware of is, and why you don't see a lot of change taking place, is because these things are so pervasive, so in our face, that if we're not aware of them, that they can really begin to drown us. And we can end up drowning in them. And then what that does is it creates a whole series of emotional issues with people to the point where they can hate their organization, they hate work, which then impacts their own social well-being, etc. So one of the first things we're going to talk about will be this event level. And the question is, how do we understand the deeper level of these things? So what will happen then is, under the event level, then we begin to look at patterns and trends. So what they do, and those of you who are in school, management by data and all of these things, really what this is about is, what we're trying to understand is behavior over time. So for example, if you're in a classroom or you're a building principal and you have a teacher that's constantly having behavioral problems in the classroom, the question is, how do we look at the behavior of everyone in that classroom? And what does it look like over time? And what does that mean? What do we understand? The problem with most organizations many times is they get fixated on data. And the old concept of analysis can lead to paralysis. That's when you get stuck at that level. We got to look at the test scores and so what's happened in the school environment is that we use data to make these generalizations about both teacher behavior, kid behavior, principal behavior, superintendent behavior. Same thing in business. We look at the bottom line and we make all types of decisions related to that. Now, if you get stuck at that level, you're still going to drown in the events. So what you have to do then is you go down to the next level. And what that is systemic structures. And basically there you begin to talk about the parts of the organizations that affect people as they carry out these things. It's the design of the system. So what you're asking is, what are the factors that are contributing to this behavior? And generally what you're looking at are the visible artifacts within the system. So, for example, I said to you that if you think about the structure of a school, we basically have 13 boxes, starting with the letter K and ending with the number 12. And they're boxes on the organizational chart. So we have some of those boxes go K to 6, then some of the other boxes are segregated into a thing called a junior high or a middle school, senior high. Universities, same way. We have silos. Now, what's important about that is that there are other things that impact that. So if you work in a public school system, one of the things that affects work is a thing called a contract. Because a contract is designed to define what the system of work is and what the roles are. If you're in a curriculum is designed to say how we organize information and knowledge. So a school board has policies. They affect how people act and behave. So one of the things that we have to begin to understand and to begin to look at, if you're going to be a very effective leader, is you need to understand the impact of the structure of the organization. So again, look at a classroom, and many times with all of the technology that we have, and think of the billions of dollars of technology that we have integrated into our schools. And you tell me what has changed over time. Not much. We still have grade levels. You still have people sitting in rows. You go into Drexel and you look at all this high-tech stuff. You walk into most of the buildings and there's a traditional classroom. Teacher up front, either it's in a large arena style or it's classrooms, etc. So what I'm saying is that structure, and the most important thing I'll talk to you about is that structure shapes the behavior of people over time. So I want you to start thinking about how's your place organized? You know, what structures are in place? How does it shape my behavior? And then the last, so this is what I was talking about in terms of schools. So if you're looking at that top figure is the picture of the internet. So, you know, how are these designs relevant to the world in which we live in today, particularly with the flow of information? And I could put 13 through 16 at the bottom. The next question, you know, I want you to think about in terms of that is, how do these designs play out for schools in creating new structures for learning environments or patterns of work, both for adults and kids? And the last thing I want you to think about is, and we'll go in more detail, obviously, into these, how do these structures allow for collaboration and teamwork needed to interact globally? So this is what I'm talking about, structure. You know, they're very powerful, but the problem is we're not conscious of it. And so they're tacit. So they need to become more visible, particularly leaders have to understand how to do that. And then the last one is, and this is what your first assignment's about, are mental models. And basically, these are all the images and assumptions that you carry around your heads, you know, about how people and institutions work every single day. And mental models are transformative, because what they are is they are about the thinking that allows things to happen. So what's the assumption of your organization? What does it believe? What does it do? What are the daily habits of actions that take place and are accepted and not accepted within an organization? So this is a basic framework called systems thinking that we're going to be utilizing over the next 10 weeks and really get you to dive in to understanding how a leader, that the more a leader understands this framework and can begin to utilize it, the more leverage you have in dealing with complexity within any given organization. So again, I just throwing this out at you just to start thinking about it, not to really get into it, but you know, tonight. But I want you to think about it a little bit and think about it tomorrow, particularly when you go back to work, you know, as you look at those things. And then, so again, when you look at these different components, what it's really talking about is it's really giving you the leverage for dealing with organizational complexity. It really helps you to begin to think about this. And so really what I'm asking you then is how would use this? How would this be used, and what does it mean for generating meaningful conversation to address the complexity issues that you're facing? So for example, one of you already raised the issue. How do we get parents to interact within with our organization? How do we go ahead and do that, especially if you started looking at this particular model? So this is sort of the framework that you know, you're going to be exposed to, you're going to interact with over time as you look at all of these issues. And so what I want to leave this with you is an extremely important concept here, is that as a leader, you nurture deep change within your organization by understanding how people think, what they believe, and how they see the world. And you can't make change happen by making people comply to change, but through fostering commitment to generative learning and development. That's how you make change take place. And so, you know, from my own experience, I was highly successful in one place to be able to do that, and in another place, I could not do it. And, you know, when I analyze my own behavior as it relates to that, is a lot of times it could have been, I just saw it might have been hopeless. It said, whoops, that's it. And sometimes you have to do that. So these are the things that we're going to be looking at. And so what I just want to ask you to just finish, any general questions right now? Boy, I must be good. You guys understand everything. But now think about it, because it's a lot that I hit you with. And so, you know, as I said to you, if you had some time to process this, and if you want to watch it again, you know, it will be up on the YouTube. And it, you know, this is the essence of what you're going to be exploring over the next 10 weeks. Okay? So that's all I have to say. You know what your first assignment is. You got some readings to do. I will have those, your teams put together by the end of the week, and I will post them. Well, I'll send them out to you in an email, and I'll post them under the, you know, material stuff, so it'll be available for you. And then, you know, as you get into this stuff, you have any questions or you need any clarification anytime, just drop me an email. You have my telephone number, you know, and you can give me a call either. So that's all I got. So if there are no questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the share, and I'm also going to stop the recording.